Hello, my name is Victoria Burton. I am excited to apply to the LaGuardia Interpreter Training Program, and you all have given us a list of questions to answer as people who want to be involved in this program. So I think we have 5 to 8 minutes to wrap this up in. I'm going to try my best to do so. I'm a little long-winded. The reason for wanting to become a K through 12 educational interpreter, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of hearing parents of deaf children are wanting to mainstream their children, meaning that they want to put them in public schools or any other school setting besides the deaf institutes. With that comes a communication barrier. There are different instances where the deaf child may feel left out, but for me, wanting to become an educational interpreter means that there can be a bridge, there can be a connection between the deaf child, the classroom, the deaf child, the teacher, the deaf child, and the deaf child to the teacher. So there'll be inclusivity. So they won't feel left out, that they'll feel that their input and what they're getting out of the class is very important. There's so many different subjects and topics that an interpreter needs to take in: math, science, reading, grammar, and I would like to become a K through 12 interpreter because I want to bridge that gap. Education is so very important, and I want to make sure that these children are given the opportunity, just like every other child, to really take off in that class, in that classroom setting. Also, I'm really into allying for the deaf child's advocacy for themselves. Now, advocacy is a tricky thing. You know, as much as a person would want to become an advocate of a deaf person, we can be in a position to really use our our hearing privilege to kind of take it over, and that quiets down the deaf individual. But for me, wanting to be an ally means that I encourage this deaf child to really speak up for themselves, to really show their needs of what they need in the classroom or any extra help services that they would need after school. Also, as an interpreter, I want to make a promise to be the best K through 12 interpreter that can possibly exist by keeping abreast of different workshops that we might have to go to and the skills that have to be practiced. So we're going to go on to the next question. Professional goals following the completion of this program. One is to become a certified interpreter. That is my goal. I'm ready to take that expensive test. When I'm done with this, I wanted to be appropriately prepared, for this test, for this part of my life that I'm going to go into, because I feel that the certification will help validate the competency that the deaf individual, the consumer, can trust me as a competent interpreter. But it's also important for that interpreter to be part of the deaf community as well, to be really involved with the deaf community. Also, teaching parents of deaf children and other people who have deaf family members how to sign with their loved one so that there's not a disconnect, that there's not an isolation that these deaf children go through, that they can connect with their family members so they don't feel left out of their family and have a more close bond with their parents. Also, mentoring. I'm sorry, that was such a long pause. But mentoring would be amazing because I would want to be accessible for other people who need guidance on becoming interpreters themselves. So when I become certified as an interpreter, just to encourage others that have that passion to work with deaf people to pursue that goal of theirs. The next is your involvement in the deaf community. So the involvement that I have in the deaf community right now is largely in the deaf ministry. My pastor is a deaf pastor. His name is Pastor Diaz, and we go to the Island Christian Church, we have a deaf ministry that is geared toward deaf people in the community for knowing Christ, also to become disciples and to grow in the Lord. Also, being involved in the different events that take place, as well as fellowship, retreats for deaf individuals, family retreats for the deaf, women retreats for the deaf, and just going out there in the community for anyone who needs anything and helping them out. Recently, a friend, Nadine, her mom passed away and she is deaf. So I'm trying to sort of set her up with the things that she needs to really be involved and connected with the church, and visit her because she is in a place where she is the only deaf person in her assisted living. So, visiting her, having other church members visit her as well is very important to me. Also, it says, do you understand deaf current issues and trends? Now I'm gonna try to get this all out. All right, so baby sign language being one. Deaf babies, the sign language is taken from them. Then you have the sign language being given to the hearing babies. Now, there have been studies that say that babies who learn sign language have less frustration than babies who don't know sign language. That's on both accounts, the hearing and the deaf. But I feel that it can be a appropriation when the people who are hearing, teaching their baby how to sign, want nothing to do with the deaf individuals or the deaf community or anything like that. So that's when we get into appropriation. Then another one is the cochlear implant. That's a hot topic I stay out of because I feel that that really involves the hearing people and the deaf community, the hearing people who have children, their children are deaf, and, or they're deaf people who want the cochlear implant. So I stay out of that because it's the ongoing situation, and it's really not my place to be involved in that. I feel like that is completely up to those who are already in that arena to figure things out. Also, deaf representation, TV shows, things of the like. Making sure that there are deaf people that are in these deaf roles, and also making sure that there are deaf people in teaching positions as well for American Sign Language. Unemployment is another thing. Not having the I can't figure out the word, people not having the knowledge, and people having ignorance toward deaf individuals. How can I let them do this if they're deaf? What would happen? So those things are very important, as well as the social isolation that the deaf individual faces when their family don't know sign language. So hopefully that was 8 minutes or so, and I hope that you all have a great day.